to Talk Art. I'm Sally Rayn, and I will be your host as we delve into the world of the artist and the art that's all around us. Talk Art is sponsored by the Silicon Valley Open Studios. During the first 3 weekends in May, hundreds of local artists open our studios to the public. For more information, you can go to the website svos.org. Our guest for Talk Art is Jane Lombard, who is a painter who views her art as social commentary and art therapy and creates beautiful memories with her beautiful painting. So welcome, Jane.
Well, thank you, Sally. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, so tell us a little bit about your background. How did you become involved in painting?
Oh, goodness. I, like many other artists, probably, I think it's genetic because I was painting. I was doodling as a kid and painting at a very young age, but it was not encouraged when I was young. My parents were immigrants, refugees from the Second World War, so they said, oh, you got to, go and get a job.
Right.
So I didn't get into painting until after graduate school, and I had a long practice in medicine. And then my kids grew up, and it was time for me to get back into it now that they could drive.
Excellent. So what inspires you to paint now?
Well, so many things. I think for me, painting has always been very therapeutic, and but it's also, it's very relaxing, and you get into that Zen moment where you're just like painting, and hours could go by. You don't have to eat, you don't have to, do anything. You're just in your zone. I paint because it's also a way of expression, and there are so many things in our world now that is, puzzling or, concerning, and it's another way to get my voice out. And I think painting makes you look at things closely,
Right.
and that's where the memory part comes in.
Oh, so when you're painting a painting, do you start with an idea of it and create the painting, or do you see the image and then come up with the painting afterwards? How does it work for you?
Well, actually both ways, because sometimes I think as a painter, you train your eye to observe, and you see little details even yourself as a non-painter, when I was like really immersed in the science part, you would miss. And you see an image, and then you see like the little details that will bring up certain things, and there may be something very beautiful in it.
Mm-hmm.
And from that image, you can start incorporating other memories, and it's sort of layers of not just paint, but feelings and memories. So it works both ways.
Well, excellent. So we have some images that you brought, and we'll take a look at some of your social commentary images. So let's take a look at those now.
Okay. Well, this painting I did a little over a year ago, and the title is Neighbors, and everybody knows this. I was like, oh yeah, is that shoreline or mountain view? It's that little road that parallels Alma Street, where all the RVs are. And I know we have a lot of homeless people, but our homeless people are kind of different. They're really houseless, because these are people who have jobs, they have families, and you see the last RV is like, the guy's a gardener. So these are the people who service us, but they can't
Right.
afford to live here. So this is my sentiment on the housing issue, and we have to do something about this, because you can't have a community where there's just, a third of the people can't afford to live here. And so that's one painting. And this one is also same street, actually, and it was actually I did ask these people for their permission, and as you see, this is a family. They live in that little Jayco RV, and
Wow.
yeah, he's going off to work, and she's saying goodbye to him. Again,
This is in Palo Alto area?
this is, yeah, it's Mountain View, the
Mountain
border of
View.
Mountain View in
Mhm.
Palo Alto. And my sister works for housing development in Portland, and most of the large cities where the homeless there have a, mental health or drug issues, but these are like normal people. They have
Right.
jobs.
Yeah, and the rent is
They have
so
jobs.
high.
They have families, and yeah, it's gotten to be a big issue now, because I think Mountain View was the only sanctuary city for the RVs. So there are a
wow.
lot of them. I learned that from one of my friends
Yeah.
who's a citizen here in Mountain View. There are a lot of RVs because there's no place else that allow them to park. So the title of this is "Working Hard for a Living." And I painted this a couple years ago. Most people recognize it right away, and it's almost like, it's a throwback to the 50s. It's Los Altos Hardware.
Right.
And I was walking the dog one morning, and we have, turned around, and there's this little Indian lady. It's like 7:30 in the morning, or it must be 8 o'clock because they open at 7:30. And it's like right before July 4th, so all the flags are out and everything.
Right.
And I just think, like, wow, this is such a great country where you could be, there's this typical Americana, and we have so much diversity. And that woman's just walking down the street, like.
And it's her home too.
It's her home too. So the title of this is "A Small Town in the United States." And you could read it differently. Initially I titled it "Us,"
Right.
U.S. This is us. We are a country of immigrants.
I really like the way you use light in all of these paintings. The way the light hits different places in the painting really is very attractive. I just wanted to point that out. These are social commentary, but they're also beautiful paintings.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think for most painters, it's especially plein air. This is done in the studio. Obviously, I have my dog with me. I couldn't get my painting out, but it's the light that attracts us, right?
Right.
The painters and people who do more representational art. And 7:30 light in the morning in California is to die for.
Right.
Yeah, it's beautiful. This was done last year when Magritte came to town, the traveling Magritte show. Did you get to see that, Sally?
Yes, I did.
And I mean, that guy is a genius. So I went there twice, actually, and I was so inspired. And he is so brilliant and technically so proficient.
Right.
It's amazing. So I was so inspired. So I did this. And so this is his signature, the man in the bowler hat. And the title of this is "The Wall That Divides Us." And basically it's, it's surreal. So you you can interpret it different ways, but there's definitely a divider, right? So the guy is sort of, the last generation, the older generation, and then you have the kid with the cell phone. And you can read it as old versus young. You could read it as green versus, the people who believe in resources extraction.
Right.
But we have so many walls between the different factions in our society. So this is another one of my social commentaries. Well, this is not a social commentary, but this picture is, I was in Paris a few years ago, and I was in the Tuileries. I see these people there. It was a sunny day in Paris, which is unlike here, and they're all lounging there. So I took this picture, and so it's not really. I experiment. I'm getting less representational, and this is sort of an abstraction.
Right. Yes.
So this is more like Hopper. Again, it's the light, but then you have really accentuated the difference. The very darks and the light. And of course, this is tongue-in-cheek. This is called The Chairman. And then I did this piece, and then somebody says, "Oh, you should do a sister piece." So the sister piece is right behind you.
And you have a demonstration to show us how you put that together. So let's
Yes,
take a look
I do.
at that now.
So, and if you look closely at the pictures, there's one alley down the chestnut trees, and then it's the other alley. And what I did was I took a picture. Again, I was in Paris. I didn't have my paints with me. And then I'll just show you I'll walk you through my process of how I end up with an image. So I took a picture. and with my cell phone. You always have your cell phone with you. And so this is sort of the general picture. And I look at this and I said, gee, you know, there's too much stuff. You don't need all this stuff here. That doesn't add anything. And there's too much information. There are too many chairs. And so, and the importance of making, you know, a good composition. It's like, you know, you hear the term when you buy a house that has good bones.
Right.
A good composition is just like the good bones of a painting. So you start cropping it. Well, I don't want this stuff. There are too many chairs. So do I want to cut, you know, these people out? No, no, no. I like all this sort of detail here and the mystery of these people. Where are they going? So I cropped it. I cropped it here and here. And so you end up with something like this.
Oh,
Okay,
that's, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so, you know, then you just focus down on the chairs. And so it's like, the title of this is going to be a conversation. It's called A Conversation.
Okay.
So the chairs are having the conversation.
I was going to say,
people.
I like that.
The people are just walking through. So, you know, and then we always say, you know, don't put everything just in the middle, and you have to have some balance. So, you know, you have the big chairs here, and you have a clump here, and then you have the darkness.
Right.
So you've got your composition, and then you have to figure out, like, the next important thing are the values.
Right.
So
the lights and the darks.
Very good. Yes, and where the, you know, the light is so important. So it's
Right.
like the punctuation for your paintings. So then, you know, the easy way to do this is just turn it into a black and white picture.
So do you do all of this in Photoshop?
Yeah,
After the
just
fact?
just a basic, you know, the photography app in the computer. So you just turn it into a black and white. And I always have an issue with value because I confuse color with value.
Oh.
And there are certain things you can do, like wear red glasses and everything, but that's super nerdy, so I decided not to do that. So, you know, you do this, and then, but you could play with it. But at least you get your basic picture. You got your chairs in the right place, and now you need to put in your darks. And you know, I have a little trick, which is, I learned this at a workshop with a very good artist. You're only allowed 3 shades.
3 shades
Three
of
shades gray.
or
3
dark?
shades gray. Yeah, not 50.
No. No, that would take way too long.
Yeah, so you allow 3 shades, and then you work from that. Okay, so I looked at that picture and I said, you know, that kind of looks like sort of flat. And again, I'm looking at more like Hopper, you know,
Right, the
Hopper,
big swaths of light and dark.
and the contrast, contrast. So I made this, you know, I increased the contrast and made it darker. And then all of a sudden, it's a very, if you look at it side by side, it's a very, very different effect.
Oh, yeah.
Totally different, right? So then I have to, okay, so I've gotten this far. Now, how do I take a photograph and then turn it into a painting? Well, you always have to draw.
Yes, you do.
So this, you just put, you draw out the sketch, and I use charcoal. I just
Okay.
use willow charcoal. And you draw out the basic shapes, and then I'll show you how I did this, but you know, the charcoal runs when you paint over it, so you have
Right.
soot in your paint. But
Don't
you
want
can
that.
fix it with medium, and I'll show you how I did that. And then also with the medium, you could use the medium as your shades of gray. So I use more charcoal up here, so you have one
Okay.
shade of gray, and then I use less charcoal here, and you have another shade of gray, and then of course the canvas is the white. So
Right.
there's your 3 tones. Okay, but then I looked at this and said, you know, it still looks flat.
So what did you do?
So this is what I did. So I made this, like, again, I really made it very dark in a lot of places. And
I
so
see,
I
yeah.
increased the darkness in the chairs.
So like here, that part is really pops.
Yeah, and then the dark, these, you know, so you have, and the chairs all of a sudden became very heavy. They didn't increase in
Right.
size, and you look at the difference.
Oh yeah, definitely could see the contrast. And it looks like you're looking through these, whereas those look more
Yeah, they're floating.
nebulous.
They're
Yeah.
floating, right?
Definitely.
So, and that's how I ended up with that painting over there. It's not quite finished yet, but you can see the transition. And
Right.
you know, and I have other pictures showing how that worked. But it's such a totally different effect when you just change the values.
Well, let's take a look at how you do that. You brought your easel
Yeah.
and your charcoal. Let's take a look.
So I did a little sketch in charcoal here. And I just want to show, see, if you take the brush and you start, you know, if you actually painted it, the charcoal comes off. You don't want that, okay? And the charcoal will also run into your paint, so it will make your paint look dirty. So what you could do is use some medium, and I just chose matte, but it doesn't really matter whether it's glossy or matte, because they will fix your medium, and you just go over.
That's really cool. So are you spreading the charcoal too? Or are you just
Yeah,
trying
you're
to
spreading it and you're fixing it. And then you can, you know, you just do this. I won't bore you with the entire process because there's too many lines here. But then you let it dry, and then this actually fixes onto the canvas.
Oh, and it doesn't mix with your paint.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And then you can just paint you can layer on your acrylic over this. And if you're painting in oil, you could, you know, you could fix it also with linseed oil or, you know, another diluent. But the other thing that's just really neat about using these mediums, that's the fun thing about using acrylic, is you have all these things you could play with, all these chemicals. So maybe the chemistry, organic chemistry paid off. But see how you can actually start making this into shades? And you can, like, you know, I'm putting my chairs in here. And this way you can put in your values. And if you want this to be, and you finish this, and then you say, wow, I really think that, you know, now the chair looks like there's a light side, and, you know, it's getting, becoming more three-dimensional. But then you say, well, you know, I think that needs to be darker. You can go back with the charcoal and add some more pigment to it, or just blackness.
And then you use this as a guide for how dark the paint is?
That is correct, right.
Oh, okay.
So then you put your colors on, and then the value of your color needs to be similar to what your black and white pictures show. And so so you go from that phase, and then, you know, once it's dry, then you can start putting your paints on.
Oh, and you brought some paints to
Yeah,
show
so
us.
this is actually the palette that I'm using.
And those are acrylic paints.
These are acrylic paints, and you can see over there, this is the palette for that painting, and you know, I'm trying to be Diebenkorn. I've gone from Hopper to Diebenkorn. Add some color into the, you know, instead of just black and white. But if you look at the blue, you know, it still has the same effect of the shadows because of the value of the color.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So
you brought some other paintings as well, the ones that you've done from nature, and talk about art therapy and what you feel in your paintings. Let's take a look at some of those now.
Oh, okay, great. So this is my first painting that you see. I did it when I was 15 years old, and
wow.
I got a little kit from, you know, I don't know, it's like they used to have dime stores. I think with the inflation now they're dollar stores. But I did this, and I entered it in the county fair, and I won $100, so I was really happy.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And then that was the end of my career.
For then, you know.
For a while. It took a long
Yes.
sabbatical. And I hope I'm getting better. So then about, that was 15. This is when I was, oh, goodness gracious, 40-some years later. I started, you know, after medical school and practicing and raising some kids. I joined the California Art Club. And then I also took some workshops. So this is with a plein air group, and this is out of Tucson. And this is Catalina State Park. So one thing about painting, why is it therapeutic? Should make you backtrack a little bit. But coming from a healthcare perspective, I think that art is therapeutic. I think all of us need to study art. or not just engage in art.
Engage in creativity.
Yes,
Some
yes.
form. Yes, I agree.
Art makes us human. That's number one. Two, painting is very therapeutic. I mean, it's a meditative sport, right? You're sitting
Right.
there, you're doing this constant thing, and you're pacing back and forth. It's very therapeutic. And then three, you're outdoors, usually in beautiful places. So this is Catalina State Park near Tucson.
I can really see the values in that one that you
Yeah.
were talking about.
Yeah, and I actually had to go back and do it several times because it wasn't dark enough. And this is also done on that trip. And this is done plein air. So we're at this hotel. There was lots and lots of cacti, of course.
So you're outside painting.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. And this is titled Purple Cactus. Again, you're outdoors, you're in nature, and I just feel very relaxed. And I could, like I said, I could be in a studio. I could be outdoors and paint all day long if it didn't get too hot. And of course, this is, it's the 100th anniversary of the Grand Canyon this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
The national park, you mean?
The Grand Canyon National Park.
Yeah.
This is the 100th birthday. So this was a trip I took 6 years ago with my best friend, and we were in that purple boat that between the yellow and the blue boat, and it flipped. So again, you're in a beautiful place, and this is a big painting. This is like 36 by 48. So it took a long time, and I think when I'm painting it, it also is therapeutic because you start remembering
Right.
where you were and the feelings that were associated with it, and it was just so beautiful. The Grand Canyon is yeah, the Native Americans think is sacred, and I can see why. But it's it's just like you're floating, and these beautiful canyons and other friends along the way. So I find, and this is another trip, I did the Grand Canyon twice, and I just finished this, and that's actually right behind me. This is Nankoweap. Nankoweap is that famous picture that all the photographers take, from the granaries. You're perched up on top, and then you're looking down 1,000 feet at the Colorado as it swings around.
Right.
And we were with this company called Azra with these baby blue boats. It was early morning after a big rain. And again, I find, when you paint this, I mean, it brings you back to that spot.
Right.
And it's very, very calming. And I think actually just the action of painting is therapeutic.
Invasive species. Well, that's cool. I like that idea.
Well, what do you think is invasive?
Well, obviously the boats and the people.
Aha! Aha! It could be. So this is another. It could be. It's a social commentary. So actually, what do you think those little green things are at the bottom of the?
Oh, is that some sort of algae, perhaps?
Good
plants?
guess, Sally. That's actually carp.
Oh.
So 20 years ago, somebody released somehow Asian carp got into the Colorado, and Asian carp could live in septic tanks.
Oh no.
And so they've taken over the river. So you could, it's an invasive
That
species.
many? Wow.
Yeah, thousands. They color the water.
Wow.
Trout won't live in muddy water, and the Colorado can be pretty muddy after rainfall, but Asian carp can live anywhere. So we're just looking down. This is another group of rafters, and yes, you could interpret it as a human, the human invasions, or it could be what we introduce into the environment. Aha! This is of course the super bloom.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, this is near Lancaster, and Lancaster is actually if you go to the town, it's not real pretty, but it's just beautiful during the super bloom.
Wow, this is different.
Do you know where this is?
No.
This is downtown Los Altos.
Oh.
I get lots of pictures when I walk my dog. And I got intrigued by this because of the shadows. I usually walk the dog like really early in the morning, and that's when you have these really long shadows. But You know, I'm starting a series because, and this may be going to the memory part. The title of this is Stop because of obviously the stop sign. But you can see like nobody is stopping. Like, you know,
Right.
the whole thing
Nobody's
is like
there.
the bikes and the motion, the shadows, the people all moving. And I'm finding, so the building in the back, I don't even know if you ever heard of the costume bank, but the costume bank is near there. And the building in the back now is gone because all our little towns have been uber gentrified.
Yes.
And they're like, fancy restaurants, condominiums. And anyway, this is a little part of Los Altos that is disappearing quickly. This is, I travel a lot, so this again goes into the memory part. Disappearing Lake is in Slovenia. So yes, it's a huge lake. When it rains, you have 10 feet of water that's like tap water, crystal clear. A week later, it's gone because it just goes through the limestone and the water is completely gone. And that's why they call it Disappearing Lake. Oh, this is a good one. She will only have 1/21st, and this is a mixed media. And I painted this, actually, the egg was what got me in. My daughter turned 21 in Australia.
Oh, wow.
She was born on Easter Sunday. And this last one is, Montmartre, Sacré-Cœur.
Oh, so more travel.
Yeah, I travel a lot.
Excellent. So tell us very briefly, where can people see your art?
So I have a webpage. It's Jane Lombard Studios. And we are going to have an open house in Redwood City where my studio is right now. Redwood City hosts a Christmas fair every first weekend in December.
So is your studio part of a group of studios?
Yes, it'd be all
Which
the
one?
studios. It's the Redwoods. It's a Linden Street warehouse.
Excellent. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on Talk Art. This is a wonderful demonstration.
Thank you, Sally.
Yeah.